Hey everybody, welcome back to Art by Galen. I'm Galen Eilenfeld, and today we're going to be talking about drawing the hands. And I'm going to try to give you enough information and proportions to where you'll be able to create realistic hands on your own, even if you don't necessarily have a reference. Now, references are always a great thing, but sometimes, especially with something as intricate and subtle as the hands are, it can be kind of confusing if you don't know like the underlying structure of what you're looking at. So we're going to start off simply. We're going to do just a circle. And I'm going to do this kind of low down on the page here. And I'm going to cut off the top portion of that. Now, if we take the measurement from here to the bottom of the circle and call that a half, if we take that measurement and go up about the same amount, that will give us the rough height of the highest point on the hand, which would be the length of the middle finger. And probably an easy way to start would be to go in with the middle finger first. Middle finger we obviously know is going to be this height. It's going to be up here, but where does it land in this circle? It's not quite in the center, but it's not quite all the way off of the center either. I'm just drawing in rough lines. We'll fine-tune everything later on. One thing to consider is that the fingers do taper as they go towards the fingertips. They are wider down here towards the palm and much thinner down towards the fingernail. Now from here, we know that each finger has two, we've got the main knuckle and then we have two more knuckles in between there and the fingertip. But how do you measure that? And that's why we're starting with the middle finger here. If we take this upper portion and we cut that in half, that'll give us the exact location of the first knuckle. And then if we break the top portion into half again, not right on it, but just above it, will give us the other knuckle. And then from here, we can go on to create the rest of the hand. We know that the width of the hand is about half of the length of the hand, so it's about one of these sections here. And so if we estimate that and just draw kind of a box, we should have roughly a perfect square, and that will give us the ultimate width of the hand. And then over here, bring up the forefinger, and the middle finger is there. Now we'll do the ring finger and then the pinky finger. And I'm just giving the lines here. And you'll notice something. Let me do this on another layer. But you'll notice something here, and that is that the middle finger is the only one that is actually straight. These other fingers, they lean in towards that center. So our fingers aren't just perfectly, like a fork. They do all angle inward towards that middle finger. But from here, we need to figure out where the other knuckles are. And the way to do that is we know the knuckles are the highest on the middle finger, and they're going to be slightly lower on the forefinger and on the ring finger. And then same here. From here, we can work out the fingertip location. We know that typically the ring finger will be slightly longer than the forefinger, but not always. Some people do vary depending on your heritage or your genetics. But the hard part tends to come with the pinky, and that is the height of everything. When I was younger, I made the mistake all the time. I would make the pinky way out here, and it would be almost equal to the ring finger, but that's not the case at all. The end of the pinky finger is roughly about the same spot as that last knuckle on the ring finger, so it will stop right about here. And then we can figure out the knuckles on the pinky. The first one, the first knuckle on the pinky would sit right about here. It's more of an extreme angle downward. And the second one is right about here. So if we go back to our blue color for a moment, you'll notice that the angles, it's not like a perfect curve, but what happens is you have kind of a subtle angle on these first two fingers, and then a really harsh one on these last two. And so you end up with kind of a flow like so. And then the main knuckles of the hand sit along here. So from here, we're going to work on the pads of the palm, and we'll do this in a different color so it's a little bit easier to read. Now this being the left hand means the thumb is going to be out in this direction, so we'll do the first couple of pads are these up high, like that sit just under the fold of the hand. So you'll have these parts here where the webbing in between the fingers are, and you've got one sort of elongated pad and then another more roundish one here. And the side of the hand would actually cut about right here. It wouldn't extend off like this, obviously. And then we've got a really large pad over here where our thumb sits. And it's kind of oblong and it's a strange shape. It just is going to depend on the person and the position of the hand. One thing to keep in mind is the bone structure of the hand, and this is going to be very crude. It's not, please don't take this as like an anatomy lesson of any kind here, but we have the bone grouping under the wrist that is, several bones, and then we have these 4 bones that go from the wrist up to the knuckles, and then we have, the bones flare out at the end there, and it's where those come together with the next bone in the hand that creates the knuckle shape itself, and it is a little bit wider at those points. Okay, so here we've got, that's the main fingers, and then we have another one that comes off the side, which is our thumb. Okay, I've resized that a little bit. The actual measurement of our thumb, like from the outer portion of the hand, from this portion to here, this would be the rotation point. So if it folds up about like so, the tip of the thumb should be right in the middle of that first bone on your forefinger. So the tip of it should come up to about right here once the hand was folded up. Okay, so we'll get rid of that. But that's the thing, is to consider the underlying structure. Okay, I'm going to leave that bone structure on, but I'm going to keep it light. Let me make sure I'm on the right layer. Okay, and now, so now we can build the thumb itself, and it always gets a little bit more narrow in that first knuckle, and then out towards the tip it flares out again, and that's where the flares happen, is at the knuckles themselves. Like, you'll notice that the bulges in the fingers happen where those knuckles rest. And I don't know how true it is, but I have read that the reason that our knuckles are spaced the way they are is so we can close our hands and be able to keep them watertight if we wanted to. Again, I don't know how true that is, but I did read that. Okay, so that is the basic, either palm or back view. It's basically the same. There are a couple of subtle differences, however. Like if we copy this and then dull that down, or dim that. If the fingers are more spread out, like so, but if the fingers are spread out, when you're looking at the palm of a hand, you'll just get a little arc here. You won't actually see the webbing between the fingers. You'll see the little piece of flesh that connects them, and then it'll go almost straight into like the padding of the hand, which sits here. When you're looking at the back of the hand, it's different. The fingers actually come back a little bit further, and that line that is in the front becomes the webbing. So these areas here, and I'll do it a little bit brighter just in case, these areas right here, that little bit of webbing in between your fingers, that is only visible from the back of the hand. It's not visible on the front. I'll give you a little example. You can see on the front of my hand there is no webbing visible. It goes right into the pad of the hand. But on the back side, in between the fingers, you can see it. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, and it's a fairly common mistake, and one I was guilty of for a very long time, is these knuckles, these main knuckles here on the hand, right under them is where the hand bends. It's not up here. It's not up above the knuckle line. It's back here behind it. And you can see that very clearly when you look at your hand and then it bends. Like it bends along this point here where my pen is. And you see, and if you put that on the back of your hand, it's in the same position as where the knuckles actually sit. But because of that padding, the padding goes further forward on our hand than the knuckles themselves do. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about the same pose but spreading the fingers out. So we'll take this copy that we've got here, and keep in mind that the length of the fingers will not change, and the location of the knuckles will not change. These main knuckles here will stay in their position even when the hand is spread out. They don't move. So that can make this very simple. You know, the middle finger when the hand is spread is in the same location. It doesn't generally move very much. It just stays straight. Now, we know that the fingers can't spread too much. There's only a certain amount of angle that we can really get out of them. And so if we say that the pinky is spread at this angle, we know that it's going to rotate from this point, and so we can create a curve from the original tip to figure out where it would be. And you can find exactly where that finger is going to sit. Same thing here, it's going to sit somewhere in the middle of this. And so if we do a curve coming off of that fingertip, from this knuckle to about here, we can come in and draw our ring finger. And I'll erase out those other lines. And the knuckle placement, you figure that out as well. And then the same thing for the forefinger. Get out to about the rough height, give yourself an angle from the original, and then come in and put in your knuckle placement and everything. Okay, here, and we're going to talk about the fist for just a second. Now, another mistake that I used to make was when I was drawing a fist for a comic character, or it was almost always just a typical sort of rectangle. You've got the knuckles up top, and then the fingers like so. And that is not at all how it looks. The bottom is actually pretty close. The bottom is fairly straight in a fist. However, the top doesn't go straight across. It actually has a pretty steep arc to it. You'll get a knuckle here, a knuckle here, a knuckle here, a knuckle here. And this is if this was the middle finger. And so you end up with more of a curved shape. And depending on the angle, you might see a little bit of the meat on the sides of the hand. And then the thumb will come down, and you'd see a little bit of the tip of the thumb up underneath those fingers. One other thing that needs to change, however, is the angle of these fingers, because we have to keep in mind that only this middle finger is straight. The rest of them are going to angle inward towards it. And so this all has to change. It's going to be more like this. And that's going to be more accurate to a front view of a fist. You won't ever really see the thumb come out in front of the fist, and if you do, that person has somehow dislocated their thumb, because you really just can't do that. I mean, you can barely get your thumb over the tip of your finger, but a natural fist with the thumb on the outside, it shows up a little bit underneath, but that's it. Another thing to think about is the side view of the hand. Like if we know that this is the rough length of our hand, and we've got kind of a box here. Back here, this would be the wrist. Like let's say this is the part of the forearm here where it connects to the hand. And then we've got the hand itself. And from that angle, it's very much a wedge. Just a little bit up from the bottom here and all the way up to the top. That's the overall basic shape of the hand. You've got the pad of the hand that comes down. The thumb itself would be here. We know if we go to the halfway point, and we can find that by making an X here. So this is halfway, and this is the dead center of that rectangle. We know right here is actually roughly where that first knuckle is going to be on the hand. And if we remember back to how the length of the thumb comes just past that first knuckle, we'll know that the thumb is going to come up before then. So this part would be the back of the hand, and then the fingers would taper down from there. First knuckle, second knuckle, and so on. And keep in mind that the forefinger is going to be slightly shorter, so you'd see a little bit of that. Another thing to consider is that the back side of the fingers are going to be much, much straighter than the underside, because the back side of the finger, you've got the bone itself, the knuckle, the bone, the knuckle, the bone, but underneath you've got pad, little pad, pad, little pad, and pad. And so you've got a very different shape on the finger depending on which side of it that you're looking at. The other thing to consider is if you're looking at the hand, from a front view, it's very much a wedge. Like if you're looking at it where the thumb is up here and then the other fingers are here, you'll notice, and this is very rough, but it's just to give you an example, you'll notice that it is sort of like an axe head. It tapers down once you get down towards the pinky. And it's not just the fingers, it's the palm of your hand as well. It does taper down and you get that sort of shape. But anyhow, I hope that this has been helpful. I hope it gives you a little bit of insight to the proportions of the hand and how to create it from scratch. Obviously, if you have reference, use reference. And if you don't have reference, just look down, because you have some right here. One thing that I like to do is I keep a mirror nearby. That way I can kind of manipulate my arm or hand or whatever it is I'm doing, and I can give myself a reference from outside of myself. Or you can hook up a webcam or get somebody to take a picture of you or take a picture of someone else. But hand studies are always going to be important. They're just as important as drawing faces because they can be so emotive. They have a lot of emotion to them, and we don't even realize it most of the time. And so, but the key to being able to draw expressive hands is going to be this. It's going to be learning the base proportions and how to create a hand and how it moves. Because if you don't understand that, it's not going to work as easily for you. If you'd like to see a more in-depth tutorial, let me know down in the comments. I'd be happy to give it a shot. I wanted to try to just keep it simple this time around to introduce everyone to the concept of drawing hands if you haven't already. I also want to say welcome to the 75 or more subscribers that I've picked up over the last 30 days. Welcome to the channel. I hope you're enjoying the content so far. Let me know down in the comments what you think about these videos, if you're really enjoying these tutorials. I've got plans for a full-on anatomy series of tutorials, but I'm kind of spacing things out. That way I don't put too much of one particular type of content out all at once. Like, I don't want to give you guys 3 months worth of just tutorials or just art time lapses or just me talking about art ideas and things like that. I try to give a little bit of variety. Yeah, let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't. I'm happy to hear things. And if there's anything that you'd like to see or if you have any other questions, just let me know. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for episode 6 of Ask an Artist, my ongoing interview series with a dozen different artists talking about all sorts of art subjects from various perspectives. Also, if you enjoyed today's content, be sure to hit that like button. If you want to see more of it and you're not a subscriber already, be sure to hit that subscribe button. That way you get notifications whenever new videos come up. Anyhow, until next time, take care.